Hey everybody, I'm Bob Bakert with Jazz Guitar Today, and we're here with, as their website says now, the New West Guitars. And I know you've been like New West Guitar Group and New West, a whole lot of things. And that includes Perry Smith,
How's it going?
John Storie. Is it Brahm? Do you say it, Will? Is it Brahm?
Will Brahm.
Will Brahm. Look at that. Hey,
Well done.
I did okay. So there's so much to talk about. First of all, we got three artists, individual artists. You guys have, got careers on your own individually. I don't say solo because I know you play in different bands and your own bands and all that kind of thing. And then you come together, and you've been coming together to make music for like 20 years. Is that the number that I heard banded about?
Yes, that's correct. John and I started this group back in roughly 2004.
Wow.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit about that. Where did you? I don't do a lot of history, but we need to do a little history here.
Yeah. Yeah. Happy to. John and I met in the studio jazz guitar department at the University of Southern California, Los Angeles. And toward the end of our time there, I think I was maybe a junior or senior, and John was just one grade below me. We kind of formed this band, New West Guitar Quartet, at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And we had a lot of early success. It was fun. We were touring around, getting some support from different areas in Los Angeles and the university, and playing really straight ahead arrangements on our boxes, and just enjoyed it. Four guitars, no rhythm section, and we really felt like we had a unique chemistry. And the band kind of took off from there. A few years after that, it became a trio. It was just a lot to manage, four people's schedules, and we felt like we could really handle the music well as a trio.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of naturally went that way in about 2009, which is when I moved from LA to New York. And we've kind of continued as a trio ever since. And Will joined the band in, was it 2014, Will, or 2015?
2015.
And he's been a tremendous addition. And we've just continued on with the tradition of straight ahead arrangements, and then also with the addition of popular covers and original songs. And that's kind of been the calling card of the group.
Excellent. John, you want to pipe in on that a little bit?
Yeah, Perry summed it up perfectly, man. And the history of the group being that we started as students, and then we used the New West Guitar Quartet kind of as a vehicle for us to get out and start gigging. It was like a real way to take the classroom learning into the actual real world, because all of us were equally interested in how to book gigs, how to promote shows. We have to remember back to a time before social media. We're printing posters, we're using word of mouth, creating email lists, and really brainstorming. I remember going over to Perry's apartment when we were at SC, and we sat down kind of with like a Thomas Guide map, talking about like where we would do the touring. And being that I grew up in the Northwest, we kind of divvied up like Oregon, Washington to me, and then Perry is from the Bay Area, and we sort of divvied up the Bay Area. And so that made a very natural road tour for us, just up I-5 and staying with family along the way. So, from the beginning, that motivation came from all of us as students and as, aspiring professional musicians. And while our instructors really encouraged it, and we were around, a really good community of musicians, both as professors and as students at USC, the motivation to kind of get a guitar ensemble out there and to start really playing in the jazz scene and learn about like the guitar scene in general really kind of came from all of us together, and it was a real learning experience. I'm very grateful for those years. It seems like another lifetime ago now to me, of course.
I love it. So, Will, what's your take on this? You're late to the party, man. Where did it happen to you? Or for you, I should say.
New West guitars is so interesting. I think my biggest like takeaway from it is, we all play guitar in a lot of settings, but the way that we play in this band is unlike any other musical setting I've ever been in. I know John and Perry agree. And like joining that New West was an established thing when I joined. So it was very much like, welcome, here are the train tracks and and here are the things you need to do. And it's like, holy shit, this is like so many different things than like things that I've spent my early adulthood shedding. So it's we call it New West Boot Camp. And I mean that's really what it is. It's like there's no touring gig that will be as demanding as this band, no matter
Wow.
what.
Now, tell me what you mean by that, because I'm sure there's some guys out there go, "Oh yeah, that ain't shit." You should.
Other than maybe like being Pat Metheny's pianist or something like that. Well, no, I mean like.
Well, let me ask the question: are you talking about the demands of the music, or demands of the touring schedule, or the hotels, or the bad food, or the music?
Primarily the music, but everything. I mean, we tour in vans, we tour in flights. The music's memorized, it's intricate. We all have different roles that we need to dip in and out of. The way that we play our archtops or acoustic guitars is very different than how we might play it in a quartet or trio ensemble. So it's its own ecosystem, and it's challenging, and it's just like it really conditions you in a really good way to just like you're having a tough musical day in this thing, wait until your 6 a.m. flight to Colorado to do a clinic and a gig. So I mean it's great. It's a lot of work, but like the trio ensemble aspect of it and the hang is like really good. So
well, thank you. I really appreciate that. So, I don't pretend to know everything there is to know about every player that's out there on the planet or ever has been out there on the planet. I'm not a musicologist. I don't pretend any of that shit. I'm just a guy that's playing guitar his whole life and dig guitar. And Zach, you got to be quiet. That's my dog. So there I am at the Rocky Mountain Archtop Festival with, I don't know, 75, 80% of all the great jazz players, in this country for sure. And then some, the big names, everybody's hanging around playing. Jimmy Bruno's, hanging out. Frank Vignola's hanging out. And, Bruce Foreman's hanging out, and Pat Bergerson's hanging out, and, a lot of players hanging out. And all of a sudden, I'm listening to people play, and all of a sudden I hear this thing happening from the stage in the hotel. And I go, what the hell is that? And I poked my head around the corner, and there you three guys playing. Well, you said something earlier that's important to me because I'm an actor as well. There's no music in front of you. This is all very, very intricate music. We'll talk about that in a minute. There's no music in front of you. You've got pedal boards, which blew me away, which I loved. And there were, I believe, there were two ES-175s and an L5 at the time, and just as tight as music can be played. Tight, intricate arrangements, voicings spread between the three guitars. The whole 9 yards. I mean, just everything you would want. It was fantastic, and I think everybody talked about you guys for the rest of the weekend. I mean, you were kind of like, were you up there? And you were a huge hit out there. And you really blew me away. So my dog is barking again to get out. I'm going to try to placate him in a second. I think he knows that I'm on the call. So he's got me by the whats. But what I want you to think about for a second is I'm going to talk a little bit about the arrangements and how the arrangements happen, organically.
Sure.
So give me just a minute. Let me see if I can shut him up.
Did you guys hear my dog yelp at a big old bark?
I didn't know you had a dog. Is that yours or is that?
Yeah, that's Teresa's dog. They live here now.
What's the dog's name?
Coco.
What kind of dog?
Just your standard dog. 4 legs, tail.
But like big, small, what?
Kind of in between. Kind of your size, more or less.
Hey, bro. Hey, bro. I've been bulking.
Man, that's
This
great.
group is really this group is really the hardest band to play in, other than being the pianist for Matheny.
I mean, compared to other like
Why don't you
road
try being
gigs,
on Lauryn Hill's gig? See how that works out for you.
yeah.
Or Bette Midler's gig, like
Or
Alan,
Bette Midler's gig.
All right, we're back.
Trouble those gigs were.
So,
Uh,
All right.
so, I love it. Everybody's got dog. So you got three guitars, and I didn't really notice you playing the baritone, John, on the gig.
Not at the Archtop Festival.
Yeah, you playing the L5.
We were sort of limited on what we brought out there. Also, we wanted to feature. I actually think for that tour, I was using my Marchione guitar. Traditionally, I've used my L5 in this group, and yeah, and then I play baritone too. But for the Archtop Festival, we didn't. If most people check out our videos on our YouTube page, they'll see a lot of concert footage where we're including steel string acoustic, the baritone,
Right.
even sometimes a nylon string that's in this open F tuning. And
Yeah.
we've also used other archtops too. Back in the day, I used to tour with, had a Tal Farlow that I had tuned in DADGAD, and I used that on a lot of tunes that I used to write for the group in DADGAD with different capoing on that archtop too. So yeah, but for the festival, we just brought our three main axes out there. Plus, if you want to check out all the cool guitars that were at the festival,
Yeah.
also.
So how do you guys go about? I mean, so for people that didn't see you or haven't heard you, and we're going to include a lot of video and stuff like that that's already available. They can go on YouTube and check you guys out. There's a whole lot of stuff dating back when you guys were a little younger, very short hair on one of you, long beards, tall, short. I mean, the whole 9 yards. It's fun to watch you guys. Watch your progression. Anyway, so how do you? The arrangements are quite intricate. There's a lot of there's a lot of unison playing, there's harmony playing, there's spread harmonies between voicings from this guitar, blah blah blah. How do you guys do that? How do you arrange the music? Somebody want to grab?
I can jump in. A lot of what you heard at the Archtop are arrangements that I've done for the band, and primarily at this point, the arrangements are done between John and I. And Will has brought in at least a half dozen lovely arrangements over the years, originals, and I guess a few covers. But primarily, the way that we get it done at this point is we just arrange them individually and write them all out and record them. That's a big part of the learning process. And then we send each other the recording and the PDF of the parts, and oftentimes individual parts and the score. And you have to remember that we've been doing this, speaking for John and I, since like the early 2000s.
Right.
So and we have the benefit of writing for each other at this point. So I really know at this stage, okay, this part's going to be perfect for John, or this kind of arrangement's really going to work well with the group. And it's been funny if you kind of trace some of the arrangements of the band over the years. We started out very straight ahead playing, like one of our early arrangements was we played Miles' solo on So What harmonized, that kind of stuff.
Right.
And All the Things You Are, and these kind of arrangements, 26-2 Coltrane. And then we kind of went into like original writing that combined all these different guitars and was interesting, but also logistically more difficult. And now we've sort of circled back, almost come full circle back to a lot of the arrangements of standards, just because we love featuring that sound on the box. It's just so classic. We've really gotten into the rhythm guitar aspect. So in general, a lot of the way the arrangements come together is there might be one guy holding down the rhythm, and there might be two players really going between harmony and melody and solis and improvised solos. And we can still kind of trace the three parts together. A lot of the solis break down to three parts.
Right.
But in general, the nice thing about the trio is you can have one person really laying down some kick-ass rhythm, if you don't mind me saying so.
No, I'm not kick-ass. I speak fluent kick-ass. I got it.
Yeah, and I think to Will's point about the challenge of the group, I think it mainly comes from that rhythm guitar aspect, because when you're playing in traditional ensembles where you have a bassist and a drummer and maybe a pianist, the guitar fits in a much more subtle way, or like, right. I guess in a you don't have to play rhythm
You
that
can
same
take
way
bar.
that we do.
You can take bars off. You can
Yeah.
hold the guitar if you want. But
So
the way you
a
guys have
big
got,
part of, oh, sorry, go ahead. I'm
no,
sorry.
it's kind of the way that you guys have got it set up. It's like flying an airplane. Once it's wheels up, you're committed. You know, you got to keep
Exactly.
going.
That's exactly right. And you have to make sure that you're blending, that your guitar is in tune, and that the tone is appropriate. And yeah, it can be a lot to manage on stage, but we have like about 30 songs that we usually keep up on a touring season. So it's not too crazy. And yeah, that's kind of how it gets done. We just write them individually and send them on out.
Yeah, well, that's because y'all went to school. You know,
and
really
the experience of
yeah.
just performing a lot and doing it a lot.
Well, writing it out though. I mean, that's that I went to jazz school. They actually let me in, and transcribing and all the writing that you got to do. I mean, that's what trains you to. Who were the teachers at USC, by the way, while you were there?
Can I jump in on that? Because
Yeah.
the thing is, they didn't really actually teach us to write guitar arrangements at school. You
Wow.
would think that they might have, but they didn't really teach us that. We had to kind of come up with that on our own, oddly enough.
Uh-huh.
So yeah, I didn't have a single teacher to be like, "Here's how you arrange for guitar," which was actually very, very surprising.
I stand corrected.
and we also had, in following years, we had the USC guitar departments reach out to us asking us for our arrangements,
Yeah.
which I was very, very humbled by. And we had a lot of support from USC, don't get me wrong, and they definitely taught us how to play together. But there's a limited amount of arrangements for jazz guitar. Like there's a lot of arrangements for classical guitar.
Right.
But if you get into the jazz guitar realm, it's just not really very not the same as the classical. So.
Well, let me jump. I'm gonna skip around like crazy on you guys. Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
So there's so many. You guys are like like a freaking diamond. All these. You shine the light at you, and the lights go this way, and you're so faceted. And there's a lot going on. So one of the things that you do that I absolutely love, and I preach like crazy, is you're playing modern tunes a lot. I say modern, I mean, they're not the typical. I mean, I know you're coming back to it. We just talked about There Will Never Be Another You and all the things you are and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, you got a lot of your tunes. I mean, you've got some stuff from these Phil Collins and Paul Simon, and I mean, you got a bunch of stuff that is not normal. When whatever normal is. How did that come about? The decision to play those tunes, and then how do you select what music you're going to play? Anybody can jump in on that and just go.
Yeah, maybe Will and I can take this one. So the guitar is such a vast instrument, and it's been impactful, throughout the 20th century in so many different genres. Of course, we all know this. And the archtop jazz guitar itself actually lends itself really well to a variety of styles because you have an acoustic element to the instrument, you've got an electric element to the instrument, and if you play that guitar right and lean into it, it's really a powerful guitar versus like a classical guitar or even a Strat. I mean, depending on how you're setting up these guitars, what you're plugging them into, they project differently. So, early on, I was just like, man, let's strum these things. Let's like strum the arch top versus doing all downstrokes with a loose wrist, which is swinging and it's great, and we love playing like that. All of us were steeped in that tradition of straight ahead jazz guitar. It was where we were all coming from.
Yeah.
That was an early thought of ours. And one of our early group members said in a session, he was just like, man, we need to expand the sound of this group. And we thought about that. That started kind of with some strumming on a couple tunes, some finger picking. So naturally, what does that lead you to? Well, there's a lot of iconic guitar songs that have strumming in them. And the shuffle kind of beat, in my opinion, of some of the new wave hits of the 80s, like with Tears for Fears, Everybody Wants to Rule the World. I thought 2012, when I did that arrangement, I was like, this could be an interesting way for us to play a song like that, because it's got that just back and forth.
Yeah, I love it.
Right?
Yeah.
With a low strung E down to D and some harmonized parts, a little solo that kind of reflects the original solo. So that's how we chose that tune, along with Wichita Lineman came to us because I bought a baritone guitar. And of course, the baritone, so many definitive recordings. But if I were to just name one, I would think that one, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and anyway, so that answers that question. Will, I don't know, maybe Will can add a little bit too, because when Will joined the band was when we were starting to do more pop covers, right, Will? Remember we were talking about that in some
Yeah.
first rehearsals with you.
Yeah, John has a great arrangement. You mentioned Phil Collins. It's not Phil Collins. I think you meant to say Peter Gabriel, Bob.
I'm sorry, you're
He
right.
has
I did. You're
he
right.
has a great arrangement of "In Your Eyes," which is
Right. It is
to
Peter Gabriel.
John's point. Guitar is the most versatile instrument, I think, and like "In Your Eyes" with three guitars, John's got that baritone part where he's doing like the rhythm and the slapping. The John's slapping technique is a huge part of the New West sound, the slap rhythm technique.
Right.
And then Perry and I are on our arch tops, and like we kind of trade the melody between us. And if one of us isn't playing the melody, the other might be playing long sustained chords or like rhythmically arpeggiated chords. I think that arrangement of "In Your Eyes" that John did is kind of a perfect more modern song interpretation of the New West thing.
Yeah,
Sure.
I would agree. I mean, I listened to a whole lot of your music in the last several days, and you know, since we talked about this, and I would agree. You guys use more different styles of playing the guitar than any other group I've seen, or even, you know, like an individual. I mean, you know, you're doing it all. I mean, you got folk stuff going on, and you mentioned your finger picking, and you got some slap going on, and you got, you know, straight ahead, you know, and then I mean, you're doing all kinds of stuff in this music, which for a guy like me who's been doing this since, you know, for a long time, to see all that come together in one place is like, yeah, like, you know, right on. You know what I'm talking about? I mean, I'm being kind of funny here, but the fact that you're doing these things, you know, it really talks about something that I like to talk about a lot, and that is, where is the future of jazz guitar? You know, where is it going? What are people doing? What are people bringing to this? Who's expanding? Who's the Herbie Hancock of jazz guitar, as Fareed Haq likes to say? And I mean, what you guys are doing is really important stuff. I mean, and the other thing that's really great about it is it's accessible. I mean, you know, you don't have to be a musicologist or something like to go to one of your shows and just enjoy the hell out of what you guys are putting down, which is phenomenal. Would you want to comment on what I just said? Anybody jumping on that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, first of all, I appreciate all the kind words and the support that you're throwing our way. It definitely means a lot. Um, Perhaps I could discuss maybe the motivation behind those choices,
Go for it.
because I feel
Yeah.
like that's kind of where this has all been driven from. Um, First thing is, like, even though, you know, at least for myself, I'm kind of like a jazz purist at heart. I still love pretty much every kind of music, and I
Right.
love every kind of guitar playing, whether it's folk music or rock or R&B. You know, it's there's so much great music in every genre that we felt as a band that it was just natural to explore our interests in that way. So
Right.
we had a kind of an intrinsic motivation to get outside of the realm of jazz,
Right.
especially because we were a very different type of group.
Right.
And then the other part of the motivation is just like the marketing aspect and the promotional aspect and the performing aspect. Like, you know, when you're trying to play in theaters for, say, 200 to 500 people, and you really want to like hold everybody's attention who's buying your tickets, you know, it can be really helpful to throw down a song like Tears, like Everybody Wants to Rule the World by Tears for Fears. That song was really like a transformative arrangement for us, because it was one of the very early covers that really captivated people.
Right.
And we realized that we could play that alongside um, like a really swinging arrangement of After You've Gone or something.
Yeah.
And we could play that alongside an original of ours that incorporated more kind of like rock or folk elements. And we sort of discovered, this is a little thing that we have with this group, like standards, pop covers, originals. And that just kind of became the calling card. So again, the motivation was our interests and also just promoting and performing successfully.
Oh, well, I love it. I mean, when I heard that tune, I went, "Wow, all right, that's cool." I mean, because
Yeah.
I think if I was sitting in the audience and I'm looking at this, looking at that, and all of a sudden you guys, you know, whip that thing out, that changes things. You know, it changes the gears a little bit. And
Yeah.
it's great stuff. Love it. I love it that you're doing the newer music and mixing it in and blending it. It's eclectic, and I think it's what's one of the things that's necessary if you know, jazz guitar is going to have a resurgence and grow and, you know, find its place where it should be. And I think that you guys are doing a great job with that. So I appreciate that. Let me ask you a question. You guys are all really good players. I mean, you know, on your own, you know, I mean, you're prodigious. All three of you have got prodigious chops. You know, you can play whatever the hell you want to play. You can play, you know, a lot of people, you know, you can play fast, you can play slow, you can play with feeling, you can play. I mean, a lot of things when you guys are playing rhythmically together, one note. You know, you'll hit you'll hit that little figure, the rhythmic figure, and then you know, all this unusual stuff. Um, how how much does I guess what I'm trying to say is chops fitting into what you're doing? Is this where did all that? I mean, the fact that you have them is great, but where does that kind of fit into your lexicon of what's important?
Yeah, maybe I can take this one. Well, from the beginning, you know, we're again expanding the palette of what it sounds like to play with other guitar players and
Right,
playing at a variety of tempos, not just fast tempos, but also really slow tempos,
right,
playing really in a melodic way. Perry and I, when we started the group, we were both studying with Joe DiOrio, and Joe, of course, one of the great melodic guitarists in history, and we were bringing that element in, but also, yeah, definitely the energy. Um, you know, thinking about when you come to a New West Guitars show, that there's an arc to how we do our set. We want to really reel the audience in
right,
and play in a very melodic, beautiful way, and almost make them forget they're listening to a guitar ensemble, and then really bring it home with like some more high energy stuff, high strumming,
right,
fast soloing, fast solis. So the chops, you know, chops are there as just part of the tool palette. It's definitely not something that we do to like um, do in a way that like is kind of like a show offy thing as much
right,
as for the show and to serve our audience, because as Perry mentioned, you know, from the beginning, I think we thought that the group was going to sit well in jazz clubs, and you know, we were playing at clubs like Yoshi's and Kumbwa and the Jazz Bakery out here on the West Coast.
right.
But you know, we've evolved to where we're, you know, the performing arts center community, like those theater gigs are awesome for us because we have such a diverse
Well, yeah,
local audience
yeah,
that comes to see us. So a lot of them, you know, we could play a blues at a medium tempo and they could be like, that's the fastest guitar playing I've ever seen. But to us, you know, we're just playing in a way that
yeah,
kind of that arc. So the chops are part of it. And also I will comment that we don't really write for this group or arrange like guitar 1, guitar 2, guitar 3, where guitar 3 is like the easier part, guitar 2 is the medium part, and guitar 1's the hard part. We arrange for all of us to play. So a lot of our arrangements right now just happen to have me on rhythm guitar when Perry and Will are doing these really tight solis. And the cool thing about that is I stand in the middle of the group, so we get this cool effect
yeah,
with the group. And that's not an accident. So we're definitely using that. And yeah, I mean, this group, like Will said at the beginning of the interview, has definitely pushed my technique and changed the way I play guitar. I bring this into other settings. In some cases, man, it's really pushed my like acoustic guitar playing big time, and getting a good acoustic guitar sound live, which is just so hard.
Yeah.
I've been,
So
yeah,
hard.
So that
yeah,
all of that is chops. So to what you might think of, Bob, as chops, or what we think of in the jazz guitar community, because you see all the jazz guitar like hot licks and hot chops, and you know, burner this and burner that, like that. Yeah, there's an element of that, but for us, the chops come in the shaping it, playing as an ensemble, as a band,
right,
and you know, the sum is greater than its parts when we play in New West. And it is funny because I remember one year, Perry, remember the gig we did in Bend at the Tower Theater, and the guy at the end of the night came up and he was just like, I thought you might have been the fastest, but then all of a sudden you soloed and you're the fastest. But who's the fastest guitar player? We were just kind of sitting there, kind of laughing, like
yeah.
I don't know, pick one, you know. So that's to answer your question, Bob.
Yeah,
That's
no,
what,
I'm actually a little sorry they even brought up chops because that's not,
no, it's a great question.
yeah. You know, let's talk a little bit about you guys individually, because you all, the three of you have individual careers outside of the group. and then you use the word synergy, which is one of my favorite words. So, John, why don't you start? What do you do when you're not playing with the guys?
Yeah, well, I'm a working professional guitar player. So there's about 4 or 5 different groups I tour with. The main one is I play in actor Jeff Goldblum's band, the Mildred Snitzer Orchestra. We're doing about 5 or 6 tours internationally a year right now because Jeff lives in Italy. So we've been going over to Europe a lot. I've been in that band for over 10 years now. I started in 2012 playing with him. And then yeah, and then for that group I do some band leading, some musical directing, some arranging, producing. I co-produced the last record and co-produced the next one that's going to be released next year. So that's a busy project for me. I'd say that's my busiest touring gig. Besides that, I've worked with this guy Spencer Day since 2008 and informally as a musical director for him. I've arranged, co-written songs with him. We've toured about 4 or 5 countries and probably played, I don't know, 600 or 700 gigs. Compared to
Wow.
like New West, we know in New West we've been approaching somewhere in that 800 to 1,000 different engagements over the
Right.
course of
Wow.
20 years. And then I do a lot of sideman work for a lot of other people. And then I have a project that I call Ponderosa that takes form either in a quartet. I just did a quartet show a couple weeks ago at Sam First here in LA with Josh Nelson. And sometimes it's just Josh and I. And we released an album in 2019 called Ponderosa. I sing on that and play some originals and some covers spanning Woody Guthrie to jazz. And that was kind of my solo project. That was kind of like my little miniature New West world, kind of what I've done from New West.
Yeah.
So besides that, I'm adjunct in the LA Community College District. I teach at Pierce College and East LA College, and I maintain much as I can these days some private lessons. And I've been on sabbatical from my college teaching since May. So I've just been right now just been playing and recording a lot at home and working with some people that just need guitar tracks recorded and all sorts of miscellaneous stuff. So LA keeps me busy. I love living here, and my wife's a music educator, so we're a very musical household. So that's me, and I'm from
Well,
Oregon originally.
do
Like
you
Will
have? Yeah.
Brahm.
No, I got a question. Do you have? What's your latest offering that you put out, album wise or video? You know what?
Yeah, Ponderosa is my latest album,
Uh-huh.
and if anybody wants to watch, I also did I recorded a video at Sam First just a couple weeks ago. That's available. If you YouTube me, you'll find that stuff. And my current project is more of an education project. I'm working with Jazz Memes, the Instagram page, and we're releasing my chord melody course early next year. That's going to be released through Chase's Guitar Academy. So be on the lookout through the Instagram Jazz Memes page, and that's been really fun. Those guys are awesome. They're like complete social media wizards. They're totally killing it with social
Love it.
media.
That,
Yeah, so that's what I've been.
That's great. Which one of you guys want to go next, Perry or Will?
How about Will? Because he's another Oregonian here.
Oh, okay. Go for it, Will.
Both grew up in Oregon. So.
Yeah.
Willamette Valley. Praise be Willamette Valley.
Yeah, PNW baby. I mean, you know, my life is fully comprised of playing guitar. I do a lot of sideman work for a lot of different artists. That includes touring, that includes local stuff, that includes gigs around town, as background music, as featured shows. I just recorded my new trio album, so I write a lot of music. I tour that sometimes, and you know, I basically say that like I make my living as a sideman, and that helps fund my own music, my own artistic career. So it's just a circle that works perfectly. And I have been in a mode where I've been on the road a lot, and that's such an interesting lifestyle. That like I started touring with New West when I was 25, and by the time I was like 30, like having 5 years of that, you start to see some things you fall into, like some bad health things, whether it's like the way you spend your time, like how much you're drinking, like, oh wow, I've been gaining weight because I'm literally just like eating at Denny's and like getting 4 hours of sleep. So then like reassessing lifestyle things, like being a road musician, which is how I would call myself like at, at the least a part-time road musician, has
Mhm.
actually helped me assess like how to like live more healthy because I've,
Well,
you
yeah,
know, but that's what I do. I love writing my own music. I love playing other people's music, and I really like viewing the guitar as an orchestrational instrument and using different guitars to achieve different things. That's been a big mode that I've been in. Is not it is more viewing the guitar as like what sound would be best for this setting, or what sound do I want to try for this right now, as
right,
opposed to like trying to like force one guitar to get a sound.
right.
um, and I call it a hobby, but the thing is I don't have hobbies. Hobbies become obsessions for me. It's like it starts as a hobby and then it's not a hobby. The fun is gone and it's now a full blown obsession. That's how it works. So
Well, if it means anything to you at all, I'm in my 70s, and I've had a guitar in my hands since I was 12 years old. I mean, I would say almost every day in some way, shape, or form. I mean, I've always got there's one here, there's one there, there's one over here. And when you talk about hobby being an obsession, I fully get it.
it's the
Fully get it.
best.
Say no more. So what's your latest recording project?
Mm. Yeah, it's a trio album. Anthony Fung is the drummer. Luca Alamano is the bass player. Really wonderful, versatile musicians. Because my music, in this case, the music, there's not much straight ahead about it at all. It's my own songs,
Yeah.
um, and it's kind of its own musical ecosystem. You know, it's kind of like the thing where you like to have musicians that can play jazz, that not even the word jazz, musicians that really have ears and vocabulary,
Right.
and also musicians that have vocabulary in genres outside of jazz,
Right.
to just make the music feel genuine.
Well,
That's
yeah.
what the album is.
I
So
love to hear that because we called the magazine Jazz Guitar Today because it, it wasn't taken.
ah,
But the truth of the matter is that we're not just about old school straight ahead. We I mean I've had Steve Vai on the cover, for
mm,
example. I mean Robin Ford, who was not a straight ahead player, played with Miles, of course. We've had I mean just a bunch of people that you would not consider to be jazz. So you said an important thing, and that is that what I'd say is that it's not so much the music as much as it is the vocabulary applied to all kinds of music, to make things fresh and interesting and all that. And I think that's what I heard you say. And I think that's absolutely dead on, perfect, wonderful. And everybody, I mean, every time I've interviewed a guitar player, and any of the guitar players, any of I always say, what's the most important thing? And they all say the same thing, what you just said, ears.
mm.
Got to have ears. You got to be listening and paying attention. Very, very cool. Now, who's next on the list here?
That would be me.
Hey,
Um,
hey, Perry.
yes. So Perry Smith here. I moved to New York in 2009,
Yeah.
and at this point in my career, I have a lot of really great stable work in town that I like. Um, it works out well for me because first and foremost, I'm a family man. I'm a father, two wonderful boys. I got one on the way
All
as
right.
well. So very exciting times here in the Smith household. Um, I teach jazz guitar for two different institutions here in New York, one in Brooklyn, one in Manhattan, and it's great. I have a lot of wonderful students,
Now,
and
where do you teach?
I teach at the Kaufman Music Center and at the
Mhm.
Brooklyn Music Factory.
All right.
And yeah, they're really great spots for me and provide a lot of stability for me. And I also have 3 weekly gigs in town that are really fun. 2 of them are with my trio, and one is with a quartet that I've worked with for a long time, with a couple of different singers. And yeah, I've been fortunate to stay really busy out in town. I'd say since the pandemic, when we all lost all our gigs, and actually
Right.
New West was doing a podcast during the pandemic because we didn't really know what else to do, to be
Right.
honest. Um, New York has really kind of come roaring back since about the last like year and a half, almost 2 years it's felt. And so it's been quite busy in town, and I get the opportunity to tour with a few different artists, different vocalists, a few different instrumentalists. Um, but primarily my work is in town, and it's been working out really well for me lately, from a health standpoint, from a balance standpoint. And I have a nice studio at my home in Brooklyn where I produce a live stream every month with some great players. So yeah, things feel really good in New York. I'm happy I was able to stick it out for, what is it now, 14 years? I can't believe it. So hopefully I got another 20, 30, 40 more to go out here.
Well, that's the tenacity, because I know a lot of guys that have gone up there and couldn't hack it and came home. So that's
Yeah, it can be really difficult, and careers definitely go through phases,
right.
in any city, New York especially. But there's really a lot happening here. Like the more I talk, I mean, it's the same in LA, but the more I talk to musicians out here, it feels like there's a lot going on, and there's work to be had. You just kind of have to like be smart about it, and kind of keep your head down and just keep hustling.
I talked to Ed Cherry, who obviously, he
Oh
was,
yeah.
was on the cover not long ago. And I said, how is the health of the music scene in New York right now? And he said it exactly what you said. He said it's stronger than it was. I said, well, let me ask you a question. Is it stronger than it was pre-pandemic? And he said, yes. And so
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
I would agree with him. I mean, it's not the same for everybody. Like if you're
of course.
21 and you just graduated from new school, you're not going to have the same opportunities that Ed Cherry might be getting these days.
Right,
But the one thing about New York, which is kind of, you know, it's sort of good and bad. It's not as bohemian as it used to be, like in the 90s or something. It's much more high society.
right,
So nowadays, there's all these fancy clubs that are charging $40 covers, and there's private clubs, and there's just a lot of money flowing around the city, which is a good thing for musicians and people that are trying to make a living in this way. But it's also kind of a strange elitist thing. New York is such a like an artistic place that has such a big reputation for great art, and you don't want to like price that out because
right.
everything's getting so expensive. So these things are kind of complicated.
Very, very, very cool. Well, so then we bring it back to New West, which, you know, and how does that work into your time allocation? I mean, you only got so many, weeks in a month, and days in a year, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. How much each of you guys allocate towards getting together and playing gigs and touring together? How does that fit in?
Yeah, it's changed over the years. I think our peak was maybe 2016 or 17. We were doing almost 60 dates a year.
Okay.
And now we're doing just a couple handful of tours a year. I mean, yeah, like Perry, I'm about to be a new dad in March of next year. I'm super stoked about that. So
Congrats.
my thanks, man. My career's changing a little bit. Definitely, I think all of us are getting, as we get older, a little pickier about the kind of touring that we do, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing. It's
Yeah,
also
sure it is.
it's a good bar to set when you have two of us, Will and I, in Los Angeles and Perry's in New York, because we have to make a certain thing really happen for us to tour, and that's great because it forces us, it helps us get better gigs.
Right.
Um, but definitely there's seasons with this career. I feel like this time of year is a big booking time of year between now, like there's kind of a pause from Thanksgiving, and then after January through February, because it's kind of slow, that a lot of people are just kind of working on generating projects, generating some gigs for later in the year. And we start talking about our summer and maybe doing a summer run of dates. We have some stuff coming up in February out here on the West Coast right now. And from time to time, we have some help with booking from a booking agent, but ultimately we really do our own booking. And yeah, I mean, you hit it right on the head, Bob. I mean, allocating time for your own thing, it's definitely a lot of work. That's why we've had to kind of pause high action, because we're all so busy with a lot of other things, and doing a podcast is, man, it's a huge undertaking, as we learned. Although it was great to do, somewhere, what was it, Perry? I think it was 100 and some odd episodes that we did.
Yeah.
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 And so anyway, yeah, I think it's different for all three of us. And sometimes I know that like Perry and Will are busy doing their stuff, and I might be off the road and just kind of doing my thing. And so I'll start hustling some gigs. And then sometimes they know that I'm busy and out doing whatever. And so then they're kind of hustling. So we all kind of share it a little bit, and then, yeah, kind of shares as much of the responsibilities as we can. But it's definitely something it's always on my to-do list to, like, okay, I'm going to follow up for this New West date. I'm going to research this. I'm going to reach out to these people. And what's so great about, you giving us this opportunity today to share with you and also all the Jazz Guitar Today followers is, this right here opens up maybe new opportunities for us to get out, do some more clinic work, meet other jazz guitar professors. And so that kind of can start the discussion about us doing a tour if we get what we call an anchor date somewhere out there. And
I hear you.
we all kind of work together on it.
I'm gonna start wrestling this thing together a little bit. So what do you guys want the world, the world of jazz guitar? What do you want, what do you want people to know about your group? You got a banner message, what do you want that to be?
What's the headline?
Yeah, I think for me, I don't know, for you guys, I just want them to know that we're out there working our best to do what we do and to share and connect with other people and to contribute to kind of the lineage of jazz guitar, while also showing people the possibilities of playing guitar with other guitarists, because there's just not a lot of people doing this kind of ensemble except maybe in the classical world. So
right.
So just being present. Perry or Will, you guys want to add to that?
Gosh, I guess what I would add to it is that, like, guitar ensemble can be really fun. Like, it's not as common, but it can be really fun because it's really like a magic trick. At the end of the day, it feels like a magic trick. And when you're up there playing with a quartet or a trio, bass and drums, it's like this has been done over and over and over and over again. And, like, it's great. I love doing it. It's like also one of my favorite things. But guitar ensemble is so rewarding, and it's so fun when you get there with just 3 or 4 guitar players and you have something kind of worked out. You have like a little bit of an idea put together and you present it. It really captivates people, and we've felt that. We've seen that for a lot of years. So in that way, I find it to be really fun and rewarding. But I guess the caveat is that it takes a lot of hard work, leading up to it. Oftentimes the gig is the easiest part, but it's the preparation, it's the hustle, it's getting there, it's setting it up, and then when you're playing, it's like, oh, this is a breeze.
I'm an actor.
I have one.
Pardon me?
I have one.
Yeah, I'm waiting for you.
Bringing it back to what John was talking about expanding the sound of a guitar ensemble. I will be honest. At the Archtop Festival, a lot of the guitar pairings I heard sounded the same to me. They sounded exactly the same to me.
Right.
They sounded like dark guitars playing body and soul as a bossa. Right. And I was not interested in it, to be honest. And I think what New West does is acknowledges and is aware of all these other musical things that go on that are awesome, and that, one, engage more people, include more people, and two, force us to, like, keep the learning thing on of, like, how can we bring new sounds and new energy and not play body and soul as a bossa. with
Right.
3 dark guitar sounds. And that's, I think, what New West does. Is it does expand the sound of jazz. It expands the sound of traditional jazz guitar.
Right. I would totally agree with you. And uh I'm not going to comment about what you said, other than to say that I get where you're coming from, and we've been talking about trying to expand the sonic palette of jazz and the jazz guitar, if you will. And you don't have to play like this, for example, is a Benedetto, but it's a solid guitar. It's a chambered guitar. It's a Pat Martino. It's here being reviewed. You can play on a Strat, you can play on a Tele, you can play on a 335, you can play on an L5, you can play on a Stromberg, you can play on, it's not the guitar, it's the music itself and the hands and the fingers and blah 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 blah. So I understand what you're saying, and I applaud you guys for doing what you're doing. I think that's pretty clear that you're expanding the whole sonic palette of the instrument, what can be accomplished with 3 guitars. You're showing people, a lot of people, how to be entertainers, which is important. I mean, if the people think that Miles wasn't concerned about whether or not he was entertaining. Yeah, he was very concerned about whether or not he was entertaining.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
and all those guys. I mean, Satchmo. There's a famous story about him. He's singing and playing. There's a guy that was like trying to upstage him. He was the reigning king, and there was a guy who was trying to upstage him, and he whispered in his ear, something that you don't want to hear. Basically, don't screw with my gig. But they're entertainers, and you got to entertain people. You got to, as you say, connect. And in the acting world, connection and authenticity, that's what it's all about. And you guys are doing that with aplomb, which is why I wanted you to be part of be on the cover, and why we wanted to bring your story to light as best we can. So I'm gonna switch gears for a little bit, because we're not gonna be talking too much longer. I want to talk about your guitars, and I don't spend a lot of time talking about equipment, but John, you happen to play one of my favorites, and the other 2 guys play 2 of my favorites. I mean, every guy that ever played any instrument, every time you see an L5, you go, "Oh my God, it's a '63 Corvette split window." If you don't know what that is, and so you play an L5, why?
Well, because I always wanted one, and then I had an opportunity to get one at the right time, and then I got it. I'm a big guy. I can handle an L5. But other guitars that seem to be more popular, these small, trimmed down ones, always felt too small for me. And I got that guitar in 2004. I've had it almost 20 years. It was brand new, and
Yeah.
that's been my main instrument. That has been definitely my main instrument. Besides that, um, 2017, I had been in touch with Stephen Marchione over the years at the NAMM show and at some other stuff.
Right.
He knew me, and he wanted to build a guitar for me, and it never was really the right time. And then I wanted a counterpart to that L5 that was more of an acoustic arch
Right.
top. And so he built me that guitar, and so now I go between both. I play the Marchione a lot, but I still play my L5 a lot too.
Right.
And what's fun about New West in the beginning was that guitar has so much low end to it. And back when, Perry might remember, when I bought that guitar and it was brand new, it was really tight and it wasn't quite yet playing. And now it's like it's got this beastly low end to it, because we beat that thing up and taken it around and schlepped that thing from here to Timbuktu. And the arrangements have been formed around like having that guitar in the low sphere,
Yeah.
and then the 175. And it just so happened that Will was playing a 175 when he joined the band too, and an instrument, all this, so yeah, I mean, that definitely that has been an element of it, and it's definitely shaped how we arrange for the group. And like we're talking expanding the sound, I think it's important. Like, yeah, we're saying about like knobs and pedals and stuff, but we're talking about how we play together.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So that's why like that guitar did that. And then there's some other arch tops over the years. I wish I still had that Tal Farlow. I had a Tal Farlow that I used in the group. And then we've also had a very intimate business relationship with luthier Jeff Traugott, and I have a Traugott Model R. that we've played a lot in the band. And so, yeah, so the guitars kind of have pretty much stayed almost the same over all these years. So you see photos of us in 2005 and 6, and there's our same guitars, and here they
Yeah.
are today. You know, people come up to me with that L5 and like, wow, what year is that? And I'm like, 2002. And they're like, it's a really old guitar because it's been beat up a lot. So that's the history of that. And then, yeah, Perry can talk about.
I love an L5. You know, actually, I was talking with Wolf Marshall the other day. He's got his 63,
Mhm.
which has the Florentine cutaway, and you know, I don't know, I just love it. I had an L5 as well, and you made a thing about being I'm 5'10", 150 pounds, and that thing just eats me up.
Yeah, and I don't know. There's something about the Gibsons, the old Gibsons,
Oh,
or
they're
even
great.
that it's like driving like a Beamer, like really like
Oh man, they're great.
road versus something that's like more of these modern arch top that Luthier's builds, more like a Tesla or something. I don't know. I mean, and there's reasons for both of them, but it's been pretty fun that all of us have played these Gibsons.
Yeah,
And
no,
you know,
they're
it's
you know, the L5s and the 175s, they got their reputation for a reason.
yeah, and some of those guitars are dogs, and some of them are really good,
Well,
and we have some good ones.
that's a whole other discussion. Yeah, they're the thing that I tell people is that they're not all created equal. You
Yeah.
know, find a
Oh,
good
and I will say this lastly, also a major thing we've worked on in this group is how we amplify the group, and the Hendrickson
right,
amps have been awesome because they allow us to really focus and blend the sound, and they sound good at soft volumes and at loud volumes. And you know, using open back tube amps type of stuff, it works great for the baritone, but sometimes it's not the best choice for when we're
right.
trying to blend. And so that's kind of how we've evolved with the pedals and the volume pedals, and how we blend the
Which
group.
model Hendricksons do you guys use?
I have a 110 ER from 2013 and a Jazz Amp 10, and we every, you know, Peter is very kind and helps us get some jazz 10s,
Right,
sometimes to the middle of the country where we're going. And when we started playing those amps in 2014, I had bought one from True Tone, and I told the guys, I said, I think this is a great new West amp, because Perry was using my Polytone a lot when he'd come
right,
out here. And we right away were like, yeah, it actually kind of works because it has that very narrow blend, and it blends together.
right.
And Henderson's were not really around a lot then as much as they are now. And now, as we've all seen, they're more common at colleges and schools. So we can travel places and sometimes
Oh yeah,
borrow or use a bud, you know, which we've done. Although the 10-inch model seems to be like our kind of the sweet spot for New
yeah.
West.
No, I have a small bud, which I for what I'm doing is just fine. But the truth of the matter is, if I was playing gigs like every night of the week and everything, I would have a 10.
Yeah.
It
So
just
that's that gives you kind of that rundown. I'll hand it off to Perry, Perry and Will here. What
sure,
do you think?
Perry, go ahead. You're playing 175. What's up
Yeah, got my 175
with?
right here. Got a bunch of other guitars here as well. I've been playing the 175 since I was just, you know, like a kid in high school, and I just have kind of ridden it out, you know, for better or worse. At this point, it's like I'm so connected to this guitar. It's like a
So
part of my body, you know.
put that guitar in the playing position. In the playing position, like you were going to play it. All right.
This is how I'm
And
gonna play it.
now
Yeah.
was there a 335 over there? Did you have a
Yes, and
335?
I play this my Gibson 335 quite a bit
Yeah.
these
Well,
days.
I was
Actually,
telling
yeah,
somebody today, the thing about a 175, the 335, the neck is kind of it's very much to the left of your eyes. It starts here, you know, underneath you know, so you can kind of look down on the 175 fingerboard a little bit, and I just think it's comfortable as all hell. I have both, you know.
Oh yeah, there does take some getting used to when you go between 335 and a
Yeah,
175 because the scale lengths are different. I think that's what you're talking about.
yeah. Well,
Um,
yeah. What I'm talking about is that even the positioning of the 12th fret physically, if you were to, you know, geometry, you know, how far it is away from, you know, your left eye. If you're when you have the guitar in the playing position and you look down, what are you looking at? And the
yeah,
175, I feel you've got a little more comfortable, a little bit more of the fingerboard is underneath your eyes, whereas what 335 you're looking to the left a little bit more. That's just my take.
yeah. No,
And
I agree. I mean, I just love this 175. It's just got a great kind of woody sound. It's a really swinging guitar,
how long have
and
you had it?
uh 23 years or something like that. Yeah. So
Yeah. I mean,
yeah, and you just really, I think the thing about a quality guitar, really any guitar, but especially a guitar of quality, is like when you really play it for a lot of years and you put your blood and your sweat and your tears into it, and you make little modifications, new tuners, maybe change the bridge, pickups, things like that. It really becomes your own.
yeah.
It becomes your thing. And like
The neck.
I've had so many luthiers over the years, great luthiers that make these incredible guitars. You're like, oh, you should get this, you should get that. It kicks your 175's ass. And I'm just like, I don't know, man. Like,
I know what you mean, bro.
it's
I'm not
there's
going
a
to be
lot of there's a lot of merit to what they're saying, but I think at the end of the day, artistically, you got to kind of like go with what you feel is like calling you, and the sound that you get and the journey that you're on. And so for
well,
me, it's primarily the 175, but I also use my Gibson 335, which is like a 78. It's a freaking killer guitar. I
yeah.
love it. And I have a D'Angelico reissue from 2001 that is awesome. So those three guitars and some acoustic guitars are my main instruments.
Well, the thing about a guitar, if you, it's like, with a mate. I'm not going to be sexist and say it's like a woman, but it's like a mate. When you find the one that
Yeah,
does it for you, you just kind of hang on to it. Hang on to her.
yeah,
Because
totally.
there's a lot of pretty guitars out there. There's a lot of this, that, and the other thing. But man, some guitars, you just pick them up and they speak to you. The last guitar that did that for me, I was at Groon's, and the guitar was $100,000. We broke up right away. I didn't spend
What
much
kind
time
of guitar was that? What guitar was it?
It was a pre-war Martin D41, I think it was, or 40.
Cost $100,000.
$100,000.
Damn.
I was playing this guitar. It and I were meant for each other.
I gotta be honest, man. I'm
I know.
against guitars that cost more than like $4,500.
I couldn't get it out of my hands. I could not get it out of my hands fast enough. Okay.
I'm not okay if a guitar costs more than $4,000. Like,
I hear you.
There's a problem.
I understand where you're coming from. So you're playing your 175. Let's talk about your guitar.
Yeah, I too play a Gibson 175 in New West. It's really cool to compare mine to Perry's because they're very different. Perry's is like a 90s one. Mine is like a 59 reissue that I got new in like, I don't know, 20.
Is yours mahogany, his is maple? Are they different woods or the same woods? Are they both maple?
Unfortunately, that's out of my jurisdiction. I don't know anything about
you don't
what
know,
kind
huh?
of wood it is.
Okay.
But like, for example, Perry's is heavier. It's got a thicker top. Mine has a thinner top, and it's kind of got like a crisper, faster attack.
Is it right there? Is it right there?
No, it's not.
Oh, okay,
it's it's somewhere back there.
No, never mind.
Yeah, okay. And like, like John said, man, if you're playing bebop, like, you just have to play a Gibson. Like, it feels right. It sounds right. And it kind of was like Gibsons were there for the start of jazz guitar. So it's the right thing. And in this band, the three Gibsons, although John's Marchione blends really well too, but like the three Gibsons they work so well together. And every time, and we like to experiment and bring other things in, and it's cool, but then you just come back to the Gibsons, you go, yeah, that's it.
Well, Wes and Joe Pass and other people, that's what they played. Joe played a
Jim Hall.
Jim Hall.
Yeah, man.
And then Jim went to his D'Acquisto, but he originally played it. Yeah, and what I mean, they all did. I mean, if you find a good old Gibson guitar, it's hard to not appreciate it. That's all there is to it. It's hard not. There's some great instruments out there today, but there's something about aged guitars, and let's face it, all these new guitars that are being built today, up to 20 years from now, they're going to be something, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Well, I will just say it is awesome that there's so many people building arch tops and that there's so many great arch top make. I mean, that is really cool. What it's hard to say what Wes and Herb Ellis and Tal Farlow and Barney Kessel would have been playing if they were active today, because we have to
Absolutely.
remember in the 50s they just had
Yeah.
Gibson and maybe Guild and
Yeah.
Epiphone and K, and that
Right.
was really it. And of
Would they
course
use
with Gibson.
pedals? Would they use pedals? That's the question.
Maybe, yeah,
Yeah.
or not use an amp at all. You know,
Yeah.
in that last video that Joe Pass did up at GIT where he plugged right into the PA system,
Yeah.
maybe he would be using not even an amp. So,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's I think all of us, it was kind of an accident that all of us kind of had that too, but it is kind of cool. And
Yeah.
we always joke, it's like, of course, you know, Gibson's been through their bankruptcy and
Yeah.
all this stuff since we've been a band. And for a while, I would send some artist A&R link. We played a gig at the Gibson showroom here a long time ago, and
Yeah.
to be in touch with those people, nothing would happen. And then, you know, it's like, so it's, we don't care about that as much. We love supporting the luthiers and
Right.
the guys like Howard Paul's a very good friend of mine. And I think it's awesome what they've done with Benedetto. And
Yeah.
that's so great that those guys, and they're making great guitars, but it's just funny. Cause like Perry said, once you put your blood, sweat and tears into something, man, it's
Yeah.
just like, I can't fathom at this point playing something like not playing my L5 for 10
Yeah.
years.
Well, yeah, you got it's like your wife. I mean, you know, you're not gonna, you've been with her, you're having a baby with, I mean, that's your, that's just the way it is. I mean, you've got the relationship and it's working for you. And why would you change? Why would you change?
But yeah, we love when guitar players come to our show. Of course, we kind of automatically have a little guitar show. People come up and talk about the instruments. Sometimes people bring guitars to our show. So, because if you come to a New West Guitars show, which I hope many of the people checking out the interview today are get to come
Right.
see us play, which by the way, be sure to link up with us on social media, Facebook, Patreon. We're using our Patreon page as a way to kind of gain a little bit of income each month to fund our education and our clinics for schools that don't have budgets for us to do clinics.
Right.
So if people want to contribute a few bucks a month, and it goes towards us bringing jazz guitar and arch tops into schools. And but yeah, we sure hope some of these folks can come see the New West Guitars, because it's a lot of fun, and we love connecting with other guitar players, and we are definitely all in a way jazz guitar geeks, like all of us. I mean, it's just that's part of what we do. It's fun.
I
And
cannot imagine anybody who's into guitar and into jazz guitar or anything that wouldn't just be thrilled by your shows. I mean, I thought it was the coolest, freshest thing I'd seen in a long time when it comes to guitars and music and all that. I was just blown away, which is why we're here. You guys are all individually great players. You're thoughtful. I mean, in this interview, I'm going, geez, these guys are smart. I mean, you're thoughtful. You're thinking through the process. You're none of this shit's happening by accident. You got
How
three.
many non-smart guitarists have you interviewed for the cover?
I'm not going to answer that question.
Will Brahm, spicy today.
Yeah.
Back when we did high action,
But I will say this: not many. I am more comfortable. I am more comfortable talking to you guys and your colleagues than any place else on the planet, because at this when you interview at this level, when you talk to people at this level, they're all bright. They're all very, very smart. They're all very, very thoughtful. They're all very artistic. They put a lot into their thing. So the answer to your question is probably nobody. Will.
Excellent.
Yeah, probably nobody. Yeah, nobody. I've had some people that have had attitudes. That's a whole different thing, but only one or two of them out of the 150 that I've done, most everybody and it's just been fantastic. And they're all, again, but you guys, you're thoughtful, you're putting it together, you're doing it right. You're family men, which is really kind of cool. I think you got your head on straight about that and where your priorities are. I think it's fantastic.
That's
I
my
think
family.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I hear you. I understand.
Yeah.
I do understand. Is there anything you wanna say to finish this out? You want to give me a closing? Each one of you guys want to give me a closing statement or something?
Sure, I can go. I really believe in the power of community, and I think the guitar community is a wonderful community. And if there's one mission that we can assist with, and that Jazz Guitar Today I think is contributing to, it's cultivating that community.
Right.
So it's things like your publication and Hendrickson's Rocky Mountain Guitar Festival and all these different little things and efforts that people go to, which are mostly a labor of love.
Yeah.
It brings the community together. And so yeah, I just want to thank you for that and your efforts. And I think that you know, a vibrant jazz guitar community really serves all of us.
Well, you know, I'll comment on that before we move on, and I'll just say that, you know, part of the mission statement, all right, that exists in my head is to make it easier for guys like you to make a living.
Yeah, that's definitely a big part of it, but
Yeah.
that's
You
a
know,
big
so you
mission
can
statement. You know,
you can have your art, you can create, you can have your art, but you can also be, you know, eating and, you know, being responsible adults and have a family and whatever it is that you want to do. I mean, I'm not.
But there are also plenty of people that like jazz guitar that aren't necessarily making their living at it, and they're an important part of the community too.
No,
You know, those people are
the biggest part.
at the festival. So I think I appreciate that, because that is a huge reality for all of us working musicians. But just to kind of cultivate a really healthy community around jazz
Right.
guitar is really important, and so I appreciate your work.
Well, thank you very much.
Yeah, man.
Will,
Yeah.
you're. Oh, I'm sorry, John.
Oh, no. Go ahead. That's what I was
No,
gonna
no,
say.
Will, I want to hear from Will because he cracks me up.
To Perry's point, the jazz guitar community, absolutely. I would extend that to the guitar community,
Right.
which is massive. And like any time that a guitarist in a rock setting or acoustic setting or indie setting can dig on what someone in the jazz community is doing or vice versa, that's awesome. I think Instagram is a huge part of that. I mean, I think we would all agree there. So I would just expand on what Perry said and just said, you know, beyond the jazz guitar community, the guitar community,
right.
Interacting with each other is the best.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm all about it.
Couldn't say it better. John, what do you got?
I was just gonna say, yeah, to all the people that listen, and you know, remembering that, like, even though it seems from time to time jazz guitar that we're kind of this small community, we are part of like a bigger, much bigger community. Like Will said, it's
Right.
been one of the great things that we've seen in our career from when there was no social media to now is the chance to meet people and connect to people is great. We love having New West as the vehicle for that.
Right.
And you know, we really appreciate people checking the music out. There's a lot of music. There's a lot of history with this band. We've done 10 to 12, well, technically 12 records, I guess. It's a lot of recordings, separate recordings.
Right.
And people are reaching out all the time, asking about arrangements, asking about us coming to their school, the clinic, asking about, can we play stuff? And man, we appreciate it, man. We've worked really hard and definitely devoted a huge chunk of our life to it. And to have folks like you come approach us and say, we want to feature you in this article, it means a lot, Bob. And so thank you. And all the people listening, thanks to you guys in advance for checking out New West Guitars. We hope to see you guys at a show soon.
Me too. You're welcome. And I was just going to say that, you know, I played gigs as a singer-songwriter, acoustic guitar, you know, flat top guitar, a classical guitar, nylon string, you know, rock guitar, Strats, Tellys, 335s, jazz guitars, and all that kind of stuff. And I've been back in the green room in several different scenarios, whether it be acoustic show or, I mean, I said a folk show or a rock show, and everybody's warming up with bebop lines. it's
yeah, man. ABCs.
I was in Nashville doing a thing in Nashville, and you know, Brent Mason and all those guys were, you know, back in the green room, and I was on the bill, you know, and everybody, Andy Reese, all those guys, they're all warming up playing bebop lines. So everybody wants the language, even the acoustic guys, you know, they're, you know, working out different harmonies and all that stuff that's more advanced. So it's all about the language, and you know, to your point, well, yeah, it's all about guitar. You know, we don't discriminate against anybody. We're not jazz guitar purists here, but we honor the jazz guitar tradition, but we want to expand the whole thing. So, Will, you made a great point. You're a thoughtful man, and I love it.
Well, thanks for, you know, having us. And
yeah, listen. So, Bob Bakert for Jazz Guitar today with New West Guitars, and You know, I feel like we could talk for a long time about a whole lot of different things, and I jumped all over the place on you, and you guys were really, really good at catching all those balls I was throwing. So I really appreciate that. Phenomenal musicians, phenomenal group, fun to listen to, professional. You know, if you watch the videos of your shows, just watching that, you get a feel for what you're going to see when, you know, when you come to the show. It's a feel good thing. You know, James Taylor, people love James Taylor because they feel good when they leave, you know, and there's no way that they're going to come to one of your shows and not feel good about what you're doing. Because I sat and watched you play and I felt real good about what you're doing. I thought, man, yeah, okay. I'm digging it. You know, Tears for Fears. Okay, we can do that. I love what you guys are doing, and more power to you. And we'll talk again, you know, down the road. And I want to just say thank you very, very much for giving me this time tonight. For everybody that's out there watching, we want to say one thing. We want to say, please subscribe to the magazine, like, share, follow, and do all those things that you do to help. You know, as I'm fond of saying, nobody here is buying Ferraris and what we're making a jazz guitar today. We do this because we love what we're doing, and we appreciate the support as well. And we get the support by people subscribing, basically. There's no money involved. It's a freebie. It's all about the love of the music, like these guys and everybody else. So, gentlemen, more power to you. Thanks a whole lot. Bob Bakert for Jazz Guitar Today with New West Guitars. Good night, guys, and thank you so much.
Thanks, Bob.
Thank you.
See you
Bye-bye
guys.
now. Bye.